This is Titanfall, just 4 months into development. The footage shown here ran on the Ratchet Clank engine because the team didn't have their own yet. With no tools or pipeline, they tested their ideas on different engines to see what worked. Respawn Entertainment, the studio behind Titanfall, had just been started by the creators of Call of Duty after being fired from their own company. During development, they were tangled in a major lawsuit with Activision that could have shut them down at any time, even before any code was finished. They were building a new IP, using a completely new engine at a new studio, all while under serious legal pressure. So, how did a team that started with nothing and had to fight just to keep going end up making one of the most innovative shooters of all time? How did they create Titanfall? I'm Connor McNasty, and I make development deep dives into your favorite video games. If you enjoy the content this channel has to offer, I'd appreciate it if you took a moment to hit subscribe. Today, we go over the insane development cycle of Titanfall. Respawn Entertainment was officially founded in 2010, but if you had walked into their first office, it wouldn't have looked like a studio. It was a dusty, empty space that felt more like a condemned warehouse than the future home of Titanfall. Vince Zampella and Jason West, the founders, had just gone through one of the most dramatic splits in gaming history. Sued for insubordination, they countersued for millions, and every line of code hung in the balance on the verdict. Leaving Infinity Ward and Activision after finishing Modern Warfare 2, they faced a situation where their new venture's success depended on overcoming significant legal battles. Respawn Entertainment's first office was next to a concrete plant and a hardware store. They didn't have chairs, desks, or even internet. With just one whiteboard, they started brainstorming ideas for their first game together. Since the office didn't have computers yet, employees worked from home and met at local coffee shops to come up with pitches for games they wanted to make. This was one of the first pieces of concept art made at Respawn Entertainment, a dragon flying through a city. At this stage, Titanfall wasn't even an idea yet. The team was just experimenting and seeing what ideas felt right. As more people from Infinity Ward joined, the first few months at Respawn were spent building the studio itself. When they finally got internet, the team gathered in a room to celebrate. With the studio up and running, it was time to choose what game to actually make. Titanfall's development started with the team figuring out which engine to use. They split up and tried out different engines. CryEngine was known for its stunning visuals, but it slowed iteration to a crawl, making fast prototyping very difficult. Conversely, the Source engine, while not as visually impressive, allowed for quicker prototyping and had excellent documentation, which was crucial during the game's early stages. One of the leads at Respawn even built a prototype in CryEngine, but the team quickly realized that the speed of iteration mattered more for their needs at that time. At the very start, they made a simple prototype using the Source engine, which also powered games like Portal 2. In this version, they created a team deathmatch inside of Portal 2. The team said that this early prototype looked a lot like the first Splitgate. They even tried out wall running in Half-Life 2. They also made a prototype in the Ratchet Clank engine, which powered Ratchet Clank Future Tools of Destruction. Insomniac gave them the engine for free, but it didn't support first-person shooting and had no documentation because of copyright and legal issues. During all of these tests, especially with the Ratchet & Clank engine, the team recognized a critical pivot back to the Source engine as essential. The Source engine allowed them to make prototypes much faster, so they switched back. The engine's great documentation, ease of use, and the overall enjoyment the team experienced working with it reinforced the decision. This pivot marked a key moment in their development arc, illustrating a pattern of trial and error innovation that would continue throughout the production of Titanfall. At this stage, the game's structure was very open. If a developer made something cool, the team tried to introduce it. Again, many had worked on Call of Duty before, but now they wanted Titanfall to stand out by putting action scenes right into gameplay instead of just cutscenes. In Call of Duty, big moments happened in animations, but in Titanfall, the goal was to make players feel like the star of an action movie. Titan mechanics like being picked up, ejected, and rodeo sequences were all about making the experience more dynamic and hands-on. This fit the studio's goal of putting players at the center of action and making them feel like heroes in a blockbuster. In the first half of 2012, the team worked on a campaign prototype. The mission was just a small sample of what the campaign could be, inspired by the stealthy parts of the Arkham series. Internally, they called this combat loop Batman with Guns. As an independent studio, Respawn ran through their money quickly. The Activision lawsuits' legal fees were a constant problem. By the middle of development, they needed more funding to finish the game at the quality they wanted. EA was the publisher, but they were hesitant to fully fund such a big, unproven project on completely new hardware. So, Respawn went to both major console makers to try to make a deal. They approached Sony first, asking for details on the upcoming PlayStation 4, but Sony played hardball, refusing to divulge specs and severely underestimating the project's scale. In a move that likely haunts PlayStation executives to this day, they told Respawn they weren't interested in a console game, but offered to help them make a version for the PlayStation Vita. Feeling insulted and out of options, Respawn turned to Microsoft. Microsoft took their pitch much more seriously than PlayStation did. They gave Respawn the full Xbox One specs and pitched their Azure cloud as the best way to handle the game's complex AI. They also offered the funding Respawn needed to keep going. To make the finances work and keep Titanfall alive, EA needed a first-party publisher to invest. Xbox stepped in and saved the project. And in return for Microsoft's funding, the game would be exclusive to PC and Xbox. This move single-handedly saved the project. And by summer of 2012, the team at Respawn finally got a break. The lawsuit with Activision, which was an existential threat to the team, was finally settled out of court. The team collectively breathed a sigh of relief. They had no risk of being shut down anymore, they had funding from EA and Microsoft, and they had a leadership team that was at the top of their game. There was no more roadblocks in making Titanfall. With funding from Microsoft, no more Activision lawsuit, and almost 2 years of work in the Source engine, the team could finally focus on making Titanfall. By the end of 2012, they presented a demo of the game at an Electronic Arts Global Product Marketing meeting. This was the demo that they showed. The game wasn't even fully playable yet, but it was enough to show what the final version would look like. With Microsoft's support, the team now had solid infrastructure. They used Microsoft Azure Cloud to handle the game's AI and physics. Each match would have 12 human pilots and 24 AI bots, making the game feel full. Respawn wanted the chaos of a 48-player Battlefield match, but the tight competitive feel of a 6v6 Call of Duty game. By adding 24 AI units, they created a sense of a huge battle without the technical problems of syncing 48 real players. At the same time, the campaign demo was having some problems. It was a 12-minute playable demo. It didn't include any Titans. Employees felt that the campaign wasn't well integrated or immersive, and there weren't really any fun gameplay moments. This led to talks about cutting the single player entirely. For most of 2012, the single player was left unfinished. Vince Zampella and Jason West were really busy with the Activision lawsuit and couldn't give much input on the campaign. So, they decided to do something unique. They decided to cancel the single player completely and merge parts of it into the multiplayer. Titanfall's design began to take shape, and the single player characters fit really well into the multiplayer. By early 2013, the game had its final major design change. Originally, each player began game inside a Titan only to become a pilot as an extra life. Now, the formula was reversed. Players would begin as a pilot and call in their Titan during the game. This formula was key to finding the fun for Titanfall. How quickly a player could summon their Titan was determined by their early success in each game. The game wasn't just fun at this point, it was addictive. Respawn showed a demo of Titanfall to Microsoft and they loved it. Microsoft wanted Titanfall to close out their E3 2013 showcase, a spot usually reserved for Call of Duty. In May of 2013, Titanfall was officially revealed to the world at Microsoft's E3 press conference. Now, this was an E3 that was supposed to be dominated by the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One reveals themselves. However, all anybody could talk about was Titanfall. At this point, the game was set to launch in just 8 months, so the remaining work was polishing the title. By October of 2013, the game would officially reach alpha. Things like progression or leveling systems were late additions in December. The team ran an alpha test in January of 2014. In February of 2014, Respawn launched a public beta on Xbox One and PC. This wasn't just for marketing, it was a real necessity because they used Microsoft's Azure Cloud in a new way, offloading AI and physics to remote servers to keep the game running smoothly at 60 frames per second. The beta was a massive success, drawing in over 2 million unique players. For many, it was the first time next-gen gaming really felt different. The movement was so fast and the switch between Pilot and Titan so smooth that players didn't just play the game, they pushed its limits, finding new ways to chain wall runs that even the designers hadn't expected. On February 27th of 2014, Respawn announced that Titanfall had gone gold. The code was finished, and after almost 4 years of lawsuits, engine changes, and dropping the single-player campaign, the game was finally ready to be pressed onto discs. And by March of 2014, Titanfall finally hit shelves, but the launch was just the beginning of a frantic year and a half that saw the game transform from a bare-bones shooter into a robust cult classic. While the Xbox One version was the main release, a big part of the story happened a month later on April of 2014. Since many players hadn't upgraded to next gen yet, a version was released for the Xbox 360. Bluepoint Games developed this port, managing to fit the huge Titans and fast pilot movement onto a 10-year-old hardware. In March of 2015, to celebrate 1 year of Titanfall, Respawn and EA made a move that was unheard of at the time. They made the Season Pass and all 3 DLC map packs free to everyone. This effectively reunited a split player base and acted as a massive thank you to the community. By October 2015, about 18 months after launch, Respawn founder Vince Zampella announced that Titanfall had reached 10 million players. Titanfall was a huge success for Respawn, Vince Zampella, EA, and Microsoft. Titanfall's journey wasn't just about making a game, it was about the fight for the right to exist. It started in an empty office with no chairs, under the threat of a $400 million lawsuit, and ended as a landmark in gaming history. By reaching 10 million players, Respawn proved their philosophy worked. They showed that a team focused on finding the fun could survive technical changes, platform setbacks, and self-doubt to redefine what a first-person shooter could be. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.